Things just went from bad to worse for Donald Trump and his entire administration with this new Pete Hegseth controversy. Members of the administration and allies of Donald Trump are trying to come up with any excuse possible to justify this behavior, but it's simply not landing. So I want to give you all of the major updates we have so far on this story, response from Democrats, response from Republicans. So let's just dive right in. As we now know, according to the New York Times, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared detailed information about forthcoming strikes in Yemen on March 15th in a private signal group chat that included his wife, his brother, and personal lawyer, according to 4 people with knowledge of the chat. Some of those people said that the information Mr. Hegseth shared on the signal chat included the flight schedules for the FA-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen. And as we mentioned, his wife was there, his brother was there, Tim Parlator, his lawyer, was there, but also apparently there were other people there in that group chat that haven't been identified yet that were close to Pete Hegseth before he became the defense secretary. So obviously, none of these people have a security clearance to be able to have access to this information. So this is incredibly scary. This is bad for the United States. So now the Defense Department and, of course, Pete Hegseth's team is trying to do cleanup. So last night, they released this statement regarding this story from Sean Parnell. He's a spokesperson for the Department of Defense, an ally of Pete Hegseth, and, of course, a supporter of Donald Trump. And he put out this long statement trying to come up with some justification. Let's give it a read. Another day, another old story back from the dead. The Trump-hating media continues to be obsessed with destroying anyone committed to Donald Trump's agenda. This time, the New York Times and all other fake news that repeat their garbage are enthusiastically taking the grievances of disgruntled former employees as the sole sources for their article. They relied only on the words of people who were fired this week and appeared to have a motive to sabotage the secretary and the president's agenda. There was no classified information in any signal chat, no matter how many ways they try to write the story. What is true is that the Office of the Secretary of Defense is continuing to become stronger and more efficient in executing Donald Trump's agenda. We've already achieved so much for the American warfighter, and we will never back down. Now, they obviously have not achieved a lot for the American warfighter, but they're using the typical Trump excuse to justify this behavior, saying, oh, it's disgruntled former employees, they're Trump haters, and they're trying to get back at Donald Trump, and in this case, Pete Hegseth, because they were fired. Utter nonsense, right? The New York Times and these other publications check their sources and the information 4 or 5 times before they publish an article like this. So obviously we know this to not be true. And their claim is that there was no classified information in any signal chat. They're claiming that war plans for when we are bombing the Houthis in Yemen is not classified, that they could share that information with the American public at any time they want, and sending that to your wife or your lawyer or your brother is not concerning at all. Now, of course, that is utter nonsense. Any American with any common sense can see that that's absurd, and that's exactly why Pete Buttigieg responded with this, which I thought was fantastic. He wrote, in response to that in particular, of course, advanced information on U.S. combat operations is classified. Pretending otherwise is an insult to our troops who all know this. The secretary is unfit to lead. Pete Buttigieg is pointing out that, yeah, Pete Hegseth is completely unqualified to leave. You know, it's like the Democrats were right, again, about Pete Hegseth having no idea what he's doing in such a critical position to the United States and our security. And the idea that they're trying to float that this information was not classified is an insult to our troops. It is an insult to the American people who they are tasked with protecting. I mean, it's utterly insane that that is what they're running with. Now, I want to give you another update regarding Pete Hegseth directly. He obviously has not put out a statement regarding this news story, but he did decide to reply to a Twitter account late last night. The Democrats put out this tweet correctly saying, at Pete Hegseth needs to go. And I would agree, as Pete Buttigieg says, I think as we can all agree, anybody who's been caught sharing classified information should go, and anybody caught sharing it again should absolutely go. But instead of just letting this go, Pete Hegseth decided to respond to this tweet from the Democrats saying your agenda is illegals, I guess referring to immigrants, transgender people, and DEI, all of which are no longer allowed at the Department of Defense. Maybe Pete Hegseth was under the influence of something. We know that he has a tendency to do that, but this is utterly insane. In the midst of another controversy regarding him sharing classified information, This is the first public statement that he puts out from after this story drops. Really? Again, incompetency on display. We see it time and time again with people like Pete Hegseth and anybody in the Trump administration, quite frankly. And this is just such a gross response. But in addition to this, there's also another critical aspect to the story, which is an article that was published in Politico last night. This is an editor at Politico, Alex Burns. He posted yesterday. Tonight at Politico, we have published a piece from John Ulliott, who just resigned as a top Pentagon spokesman, warning the department is in chaos and predicting it will likely cost Pete Hegseth his job. He said in this article, the last month has been a full-blown meltdown, and he revealed a lot in this article. This is somebody who is a huge supporter of Donald Trump. He is as Republican as they come, and he resigns and says, the department is in total chaos and somebody needs to go. Pete Hegseth needs to go. He wrote particularly saying that was just the beginning of the month from hell. The Wall Street Journal and other outlets regarding, Pete Hegseth's conduct as DOD secretary reported that Hegseth brought his wife, a former Fox News producer, to 2 meetings with foreign military counterparts where sensitive information was discussed. Next, the Pentagon set up a top secret briefing by the Joint Chiefs of Staff on China for Elon Musk, who still has extensive business interests in China. After learning about it, the White House canceled that meeting. Then came the purges, and the news keeps coming. On Sunday night, the New York Times reported that Hegseth shared details about the Yemen strike in another Signal chat that included his wife and his brother. And this is a really important part. There are very likely more shoes to drop in short order, with even bigger bombshell stories coming this week. Key Pentagon reporters have been telling sources privately. That's huge. So there's more to come out about Pete Hegseth that we don't even know about. And I want to point out that once again, that this is not a Democrat. This is somebody who in this article is writing favorably about Donald Trump, saying that he had a conclusive victory last November and that he's not a go-along, get-along creature of the Beltway like many of his recent predecessors. I obviously disagree with that characterization of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a lunatic. But that's something that he writes. It's something that he believes. He slammed Biden in this article as well. But here's also another important part regarding Pete Hegseth's future. He wrote, quote, "The president deserves better than the current leadership at the Pentagon, given his record of holding prior cabinet leaders accountable," which again, I disagree with. "Many in the secretary's own inner circle will applaud quietly if Trump chooses to do the same in short order at the top of the Defense Department." So he's pretty much calling here for Pete Hegseth to resign. And he believes that Pete Hegseth will be fired, given all of the dysfunction that we've seen in recent weeks from the Department of Defense and Pete Hegseth as well. And now, just to build off of this, the Trump crew that's not directly involved in the Department of Defense is doing cleanup. They're, extending the cleanup that we saw from the DOD spokesperson. They're trying to basically delegitimize the Pentagon spokesman whose article we just read. He said, this is Arthur Schwarz, who is close to Pete Hegseth, close to Donald Trump. He's very much attacking John Ulliott. He said, "Ulliott is universally regarded in Trump world as an incompetent buffoon who sucks at his job. I told Pete to fire him," aka Pete Hegseth, "as soon as I heard that he got a job at the Pentagon, and he's lying. He didn't resign. He was pushed out, something that should have happened months ago." Again, using the typical Trump response. Using the typical, he's I don't know him. He's, incompetent. He doesn't know how to do the job. He didn't resign. I fired him. Kind of things of that nature. People around the Department of Defense and around Trump are doing it. But I also want to show you one more response before I show you a video that has gone viral of Pete Hegseth given the news. This is from Mike Alfred. I thought his response on Twitter to this story was perfect, saying Hegseth is toast. Russia-Ukraine not solved in 24 hours. Gaza is burning. The U.S. dollar is on the verge of full-scale collapse. Foreign governments are selling U.S. assets. Yields spiked. Stocks crashed. Small businesses closing. A recession imminent. But we still like our guy, right? This is a really perfect summary of what Pete Hegseth is going through. I would agree that he's toast. He has to lose his job over this. Now, will Donald Trump hold him accountable? I don't think so. But in any normal administration, this guy would have been fired yesterday. As soon as this story dropped, as soon as the original Signalgate story dropped, he would have been fired in a normal administration. But we're not living in normal times. We're living with Donald Trump, who is a total lunatic, right? He has no idea what's going on. And look, the last thing I want to show you is a video of Pete Hegseth that has gone viral. It's from a former Fox News appearance during his Fox News days, because remember, he was a Fox host before he became the DOD secretary. But in this video, he admonishes Joe Biden for the story surrounding him with classified documents, his handling of classified documents, and it's just very timely. That's why this video has gone viral. So just take a look at this.
But what else would be the reason for why at this point you don't tap every place he's ever been since he left office as a senator? 15 years ago, since you know some of the latest documents date back to then? Why aren't you now going every place he's been? And by the way, who else has been with all those papers? Maybe you have 1,000 places you need to go now, depending on how many hands touched them.
Yeah, I mean, he is the president of the United States, which does create complications. But it also increases the urgency. If the top man in the job was handled classified documents this flippantly for that long, why was that the case? Was it really that he didn't know? Because when you take something out of a skiff, if you're a senator...
Was it really that Pete Hegseth didn't know? Was he really unaware that he created this group chat? I mean, how long has he been flippantly dealing with classified information? It's so ironic that this is what Pete Hegseth said about the Biden story, which of course Biden was exonerated for. But when it comes to his own conduct, he's having multiple different group chats where he's sharing classified information that pertains to U.S. security and U.S. war plans. So, Pete, why don't you take your own advice, bud? Why don't you listen to your own advice before you start attacking other people? Why don't you just resign, Pete? I think that's probably a good move. So anyway, this is the latest that we have on Pete Hegseth and this disaster for the Trump administration where he's been caught again sharing classified information. We'll see if Donald Trump does anything about it. I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, I will leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to subscribe down below. It goes an incredibly long way. Also drop a like on the video and comment. Let me know what you think about this story. And as always, I really, really appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.